Now I'm heading into Sumner Park to chat to the founder of Baby Give Back, which is a charity which helps provide baby goods, much needed baby goods, equipment, clothing, nappies to parents in need. And I've just gone and bought a box of newborn nappies to take down with me because I don't want to go empty-handed. That's some of the products that they need. And I've also got 6 baby bags for new mothers who are coming to hospital unexpected and they need to be able to take their babies home with things. So I'm looking forward to going and doing a drop off. So we are on location today for this episode of the Founders Lounge, and I've got the founder and CEO of Baby Give Back, Carly Fradgley, and here we are in Brisbane at your, now we're not calling it a warehouse, what are we calling this?
Brisbane Hub.
So we're in the Brisbane Hub, which is the second location for you. Do you want to give us a little bit of an explanation and your 1 minute, 2 minute, 10 minute, doesn't matter how long it takes, pitch on what is Baby Give Back?
Sure. So Baby Give Back is a charity supporting vulnerable families with the essential items that they need to keep their children safe. So we collect donations from the local community. We partner with social workers, midwives and family support workers to support families in crisis with all of those basic essentials. Cots, prams, car seats, clothing, nappies, formula, everything you need for a child to have a safe start in life.
So I walked in downstairs and I passed all of the cots. There's high chairs, there's prams. Now, is everything here donated?
Yes.
And so they're all secondhand goods, or are they new, or how does it work?
About 95% of what we give out to families is secondhand. We make sure it's in great condition, that it's safe, and in a condition that it's really given with compassion and dignity.
Yep.
But we don't get enough safe cots, prams and car seats to meet the demand. So we also fundraise and apply for grant funding to purchase new items, and we source those direct from suppliers at cheaper than wholesale rates. So
amazing.
Cots in particular, a safe place to sleep is so critically important. It can be life-saving.
Yep.
And we will never say no to a family who needs a safe place to sleep for their baby. So in some months, up to 50% of the cots we give out are brand new that we've been able to source.
Yeah, amazing. So something like this, I mean, there are a lot of assumptions. We can make assumptions that services like this are we always assume there's a service helping people like this, but obviously there wasn't, or there was a gap, and you identified that gap. Do you want to take us back to the moment where you were not running Baby Give Back and maybe had this idea in the beginning? So how did it start for you?
Yeah, there was an actual moment where I had just returned from maternity leave with my second child. I was working part-time as a lawyer, and sitting there in our dining room feeding my son, ignoring the mess, and I looked over into the corner of our dining room and we had accumulated a pile of things that he had outgrown. He was about 14 months at the time. And I had this real realisation that we were so lucky that I was really well supported with my family. We were in a financial position to be able to buy our children everything they needed. And I still found it really, really difficult being a mum. So I started to think about,
it's true,
what about families who don't have access to these things? I have 2 high chairs for convenience when my friends come over with their babies. I had lots of friends having babies at the same time and they were buying new items. They didn't need our secondhand items, which were in great condition. So that's what prompted me to start to look for a way of passing them on to families in need. And I came across an organisation in Melbourne called St Kilda Mums, and they were recycling no longer needed baby items for families in need.
Yes.
And I thought, what a brilliant idea. I can't send my stuff to Melbourne. I'll find an equivalent in Queensland.
Yep.
And there wasn't any. And I just thought that was so incredibly sad for families who needed help in Queensland. And I also realised there'd be plenty of other mums and families like me who didn't want to bother selling things on Gumtree.
Yes.
Just wanted it gone and were really happy for it to go to a good home. So it's an organisation that was started from a position of privilege and realising how lucky we were. At that starting point, I had no idea the extent of the need.
Right. And so how far along down the track are we now today?
5.5 years.
5.5 years. And so you went from that, you not realising how big the need was. So 5 years into this journey now, where are we at? How big is this need?
The need is massive and has grown. So 5.5 years ago, We could never
pre-COVID, pre-floods here in our region, right? So this is a big part of your journey as well.
We could have sat down to have a conversation and one of us could say, in the next 5 years, there'll be a global pandemic and natural disasters that we have never seen in our backyard before. And we would probably think we're a bit cuckoo.
Yes.
But everything that has happened has made vulnerable families in our community be in need greater than we've ever seen.
Yes.
So it was, 5.5 years ago, my dining room table, I decided to collect some things and set up a Facebook page and grab my friends.
Mm-hmm.
We collected stuff from other families pretty quickly.
Yep.
And one of the
because we all have them sitting around. Yep.
Yeah. And babies need so much stuff.
They need stuff. They do need stuff. And multiple, like you said before, when you looked across in the kitchen, you had multiple items. That was just for one child. Then when you have two, you get more stuff. And often, if we might be buying more stuff, we don't also need all of those things, but we tend to get wrapped up in the hype of buying, and then people buy you things, and then you have this surplus. And like you mentioned, you have extra things when friends come over. I had extra things. I had multiple car seats for my parents' cars, babysitters' cars, high chairs in case we went to their place. You're right, and it is coming from a place of privilege, and the way that you've been able to bridge the gap here and share the resources and put it back into that circular economy is amazing.
Yeah. Well, I found out doing initial research that 1 in 6 children across Queensland and generally across Australia are living in poverty, which is something that's pretty hard to stomach when you first hear it. But if you reframe that and think that if 1 in 6 kids are in need, 5 in 6 aren't.
Yes.
So what can we do if we're in the 5 in 6 to help the 1 in 6? Those statistics are pre-COVID, and I can tell you there isn't any new data that I've been able to find recently, but I can tell you from what we are seeing, that number is definitely higher.
Yes.
And there are areas where the disadvantage is much, much higher than that. So we realised really early on, I was a lawyer, my friends that were helping had other skills that were really great, but none of us are social workers.
Okay.
So we decided that we would only help families through a social worker or a caseworker, so that we made sure they were connected with other support that they needed.
Yes.
We were operating out of my home with my young children at home. So there was quite a lot of reasons why we structured that way.
Yes.
And I can still remember the moment sitting around my dining room table, having a meeting with the very first social worker we talked to, and just sitting there, and she was telling us about families on the Gold Coast mums who weren't eating because they were putting their children first, and families with, gambling problems and domestic violence and drug dependencies and mental health, and the circumstances that these families were in, having to just decide between buying formula or nappies and unable to afford both. And that's when I realised this is not a hobby.
No.
I can't keep working as a lawyer and collecting a couple of things in my garage. This has to be something bigger, because the problem is much bigger than what I had ever realised.
Yes. And so what was that? So you're sitting at the kitchen table, you've basically, like you said, had a side project, you had a personal interest and passion to make change and head down this path of having an impact. At what point did you decide, so you've decided then you need to do more, but what were the steps you needed to take then to enable that to become a reality, to do it full time? Because that's a big decision to make.
Yeah. To be honest, it was about just the next thing and the next thing. I do have a tendency towards intensity, and which I think is probably not all that uncommon for people who've come from professions like law. I was still working part-time. At that point, I didn't anticipate or see the clear path to taking on a full-time paid role as a CEO of a charity. So there was about 2 years where that was a voluntary, still in my spare time.
Yes.
There was a transition where I, together with my husband, we decided that I could reduce my part-time paid hours in my legal job, and I was in a supportive environment with my employer. But for me, it was about driving the growth, and the growth being driven by need.
Yes.
And really constantly bringing it back to that need and making sure that it was only need that was driving growth, never letting any ego or shiny things attract us towards that growth path. But there were times where it was really, really difficult, and I was juggling an intense paid job and a very, very intense volunteer job and 2 young children that put a lot of pressure on my family. There were times where I can remember thinking, maybe I should get a job stacking shelves at Woolworths at night.
Do you know what? I don't know a mother or an entrepreneur, to be honest, who has not had that thought more than once, because it does get overwhelming because we actually have that high hunger and drive to do more, and then we get to the point where we've bitten off way more than we can chew, and you chew like crazy, and then think, hang on a minute, I would really like to just stack some shelves and not speak to people and have no sense of responsibility. But luckily it's fleeting and it doesn't last long, and we never really take that next step.
Yeah. And there have been very, very many times where I've been at breaking point, and I was so close to not being able to see a way of being able to do it all. And I was just about to say to my husband, however our family survives financially, I have to give up something.
Yes.
And for me, it has to be my legal career. It can't be Baby Give Back.
That's a huge moment.
Yeah, and I think it's something that I just never really let myself consider otherwise.
Yep.
I knew of the need, and I knew we had capacity. I knew that I had capacity to lead into something.
Yes.
And I had a vision, and although it wasn't the vision of where we are now,
yes,
it wasn't anything really clear, but I'd let myself latch onto that vision that I can do something more. And
so once you see that, you can't unsee it, can you? You can't turn it off.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for you having that vision and that passion, and I am from the privileged side of the fence, and I'm not one of your people in need, but so grateful that people like you have taken this step to have such an impact. So you did take the step to focus on Baby Give Back, but now you have to be a business owner.
Yeah.
So what does that involve, and how did obviously I know that you've got the training and the expertise and the experience and the wisdom, having been a lawyer in the professional landscape. How different is that to putting your entrepreneur hat on, because you have to wear all the hats. Obviously now you're growing a team, which is amazing, but you're still having to wear all of the hats. How did you transition?
I don't think there's much transition. I think you're just treading water.
Yes.
And the thing that I found really helpful is acknowledging, and it took me some time to come to this, that for me a core personal value is growth. And I actually, to be really happy and fulfilled personally, I need to be constantly challenged and growing. And
you picked the right place to do that.
There's nothing that gives you that more than, and being able to do that in such a purposeful way, I'm really appreciative of.
Yes.
It's not sunshine and rainbows most of the time.
You're creating sunshine and rainbows though, which is so good.
And I think, especially being in a charity, and a charity that operates warehouses that is a service delivery for vulnerable families, and warehouses that are filled with volunteers.
Yes.
It's a joyful space. And we have our own community, and we're in an ecosystem where there is so much support for each other and for the work that we do. And I've had 2 new staff start this week, which is really exciting. But one of our new team members said to me this morning, it's so incredible to be in a space where there are other mums and people understand, and I have young children, and that we actually get to do this for work as well. How
good is that? I always say, and this is my passion, that's why I love telling stories and sharing stories, but I also know that the underbelly of the business world and the superpowered mums are so capable of executing, of operating, of getting things done without a lot of drama, with often not a lot of training, and the ability to pick things up and multitask and be so focused on having an impact. Yeah. So you've actually got the creme de la creme of people coming to join you on this mission.
Yeah, and we haven't grown that way. I acknowledge the privilege that I have brought to this, also with having a legal career and that background. I already had connections and a skill set that was very useful in building things. I've had that desire to learn, but it means that I've also personally been able to develop a skill set because there's nobody else to do it. I had to figure out how to design a website. I have to figure out how to fix the printer. We don't have an IT department, and those sort of things.
That's you. You are the IT department.
Yeah, you're everything. But the value that acknowledging the personal value that gives you as well. And it means that I am so much more skilled now for anything else that I might ever want to do in the future.
How good is that?
Yeah, and because we're a purpose-driven, cause-driven organisation, we've grown our staff team, which has grown really rapidly. From 12 months ago, we had 9 staff. We've now got 26 staff, including casuals.
That's amazing.
And most, we're filling positions now with people with skills for those positions. But in the earlier days, we had volunteers who, fell into a role that were, paid for half of a role and were volunteering the rest of it, and developed their skills and have grown with the organisation.
Amazing.
Which has incredible, it has some challenges, but has far more benefits.
Yes.
Because we have also been able to recruit people without any sort of prejudices.
Yes, you're recruiting on their interest to get involved, not whether they can do the role, because you can train on skills. It's the intent. Is their intent right? And are they in alignment with the organisation's values and vision?
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Do you know how hard people work to engineer this? They have entire teams working on culture to embed these things, and you simply by being you and leading in that way. And this is what I love about businesses like this. When you have led from the place of wanting to have an impact with a very clear vision and aligned values, you attract people into that space.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. And I'm really aware, particularly at this stage of growth, as to how important that is and how valuable it is.
And so, and I know there's so much of the story that I really want to unpack, but I don't want to take up too much time here. But so you launched on the Gold Coast because that's where you were based. You started with your warehouse down here. Now you've got a Brisbane location where we've got, you're going to be utilising this more of a head office or an office, and then still dispatching mostly from the Gold Coast. Is that the
Yeah, about 2/3 of our work dispatches from the Gold Coast and about 1/3 from our Brisbane premises.
So really you're reaching Southeast Queensland and Northern New South Wales at the moment. Do you reach further afar, and is that the plan to expand?
Yeah, we're at a tricky point of growth where there is so much need, and the need has increased so much over the past few years, and we've had to develop a specific disaster response arm for dealing with the Northern New South Wales flooding, given the extent of that. We're also having to prepare for the likelihood of that happening again. So we're in a stage now where we need to be really strategic about our growth and make sure that we're driven by need, but we've reached that point where we've grown so quickly. If we don't spend the time of catching up our resources, we will really
implement
be
systems,
vulnerable.
Processes, formalise. And this is something that normally early stage companies go through when they go maybe perhaps raise capital, take on external investment, or become acquired or merge. Then they realise that their blue tack and sticky tape operations, which have done really well, need to be formalised. So I think you've gotten here in quite a quick, you've reached that phase now where you need to systemise so that you can expand sideways. Is that what you're thinking about?
Definitely. And if we look at sort of like, I've just compared the previous 2 financial years.
Yes.
And last financial year, we grew revenue by 53% and expenses by 35%.
Yes.
Which is a problem because we were so busy. I didn't have the strategic capacity to
monitor and look at things as you go along.
And to see where we needed to invest. We sort of knew, but there wasn't the time to recruit and train. So we're trying to catch that up now. We've just rented new premises next door on the Gold Coast to extend that. But it's been I've had to make a really conscious message to particularly our team members that none of this investment in resources is for growth. This is catching up. This is actually where we should have been 12 months ago to cope with the level of impact we've been delivering. And we've built a team and we have volunteers who are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve our mission. And that means that people push themselves really, really hard, but we've been pushing ourselves really, really hard for a long time now. So it's time to, and actually at a board level, I've got a fantastic board. We've made a strategic decision now that we're not just going to focus on organisational sustainability, we need to focus on people sustainability.
Absolutely.
And one of our board members is really passionate about us actually looking at the well-being of our team members and even putting financial spend towards whatever we need to do to make sure that our people are okay, because that's how we achieve impact.
Well, without them, nothing's really going to be happening here, is it? So they are your key resources.
Yeah, and I think that's really valuable, especially being a charity, because in the commercial world, that's
not
okay.
considered.
It's perfectly
it's
okay.
not
to
prioritised.
spend.
No.
In charities, people are considered overhead. So
Yes.
we really, and I'm particularly passionate about changing that, and I'm very transparent with all of our supporters, with our donors. We have staff who get paid. That is the only way that we can continue to help families. We have hundreds of incredible volunteers, but
Yes.
without people getting paid and without spending money on looking after our people, the families that we help will suffer, and there'll be less families that will be able to get support.
It's a really big question when people are looking to start a business or create something that has an impact. So whether they are a charity, a social enterprise, whether they're taking profit for purpose or they're a full purpose mission-driven organisation, it's a really difficult decision to make how you structure the company to still enable you to have the impact that you continue to have. So what is the best way anybody can help you right now? Are you looking for growth assistance? Are you looking for more donors and sponsors? Are you looking for volunteers? Are you looking for premises? What is your biggest ask right now? 5 years in.
5 years in, the biggest ask for Baby Back is to look at supporting us in any way that is meaningful to you and fits in with your life. So we need support with donations, financial donations. It costs a lot of money to run an organisation our size now. We need help with donations of pre-loved baby items or the new items that we need. So we have people who will just add a packet of baby wipes or a packet of nappies to their weekly grocery shop, and that's their
To be honest, I just so I bought some baby bags online. I can't remember when, ages ago when I first heard about it, and I've been driving around with them in the back of my car ever since. But then on the way here, I just pulled in and bought a box of newborn nappies from Aldi, and I think it was $12. So just breaking down the reality of what that giving means, and that's six packets. So can you tell me what the $12 and 5 minutes of my time, 12 packets going to who how is that going to create impact?
The ripple effect of that is beyond what you could even imagine, because you've got I can see the smile on your face because of the joy you got out of buying that. You might have mentioned to
but
the
it's
person,
so tiny and 5 minutes. If I had planned it better, there can be more, but I just knew that. So I wanted to break it down to something so simple, which is literally if we go and have coffee, we're going to spend more than $12, right? And just explaining to everybody that the tiny things and the impact it can have.
Yeah, and that ripple effect, it's benefited you. There's actual data now that giving, and particularly charitable giving, can make you live longer. Definitely makes you happier. When you've dropped that off here, the volunteer who will take that from you and thank you at the door is getting joy from that, because they know how much we need those newborn nappies, and they know how much that they appreciate you having done that, taken that time and spent that money to buy them. They will get packed probably into Safe Start boxes, which are a box that has essentials for a mum and a newborn baby to get them through those first few weeks. A lot of mums turn up to hospital to birth with nothing. They might not have even had any antenatal care.
Right.
So these are on hand at hospitals. We stock hospitals all across Southeast Queensland and some regional hospitals. That's Safe Start box. The midwife or the social worker in the hospital who knows that they have that on hand, who is able to give that to a mum, feels a sense of relief that they're able to.
So do hospitals provide? Some hospitals provide. So this, I'm playing devil's advocate of people on the outside who think, hospitals provide that. Let's break some assumptions. Let's squash those assumptions that think these things are provided, because they're not, are they?
And they don't have that Safe Start box will also have breast pads and maternity pads. Yep, they're not provided in most public hospitals. There'll be a book in there that mum can read to baby. There'll be some onesies, a wrap, and really importantly, there's a card that on one side says you are worthy, and on the other side is a message that says this box has been packed by volunteers. It is filled with donations from people in your community because you are worthy of our love and support, and we care about you and your family. And it's that card as well that is part of that importance. There's a stamp on the box that says this box was packed with love by, and the volunteer will write their name. Wow. So it's so much deeper than the material aid. Those nappies are going to keep that baby more hygienic. They're going to ease stress for a mum who absolutely. It's a game changer. And the fact that it doesn't exist or hasn't existed until now is mind-blowing. But again, we are also in a privileged country where we do have free healthcare, and you can go and birth in hospitals. So we're already a few steps ahead here, but we do fall down and we can do better in other areas.
So like you said, going back to the original question, how can we help? How can anybody help? So if it's individual level products, donations.
Yep.
Now, if I'm not based, I'm in Brisbane. I could even make it to the Gold Coast. If I'm out of town, how do people contribute?
Yeah, follow us on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Baby Give Back. We share a lot about how you can help. I think even just engaging with our social media or following, then you might know somebody who needs support or who can support us. The more people that know about the work we do, the more families that we can support. We have some sister organisations who do similar work around Australia. So we collaborate and network and support them, and they support us. So we can always...
I'm sure anybody in any location could be a what do you call them, hub, a representative, and maybe collect from their region and then be the...
We have people from all over Australia who send us donations in the post, particularly during the floods.
Yes.
People were watching our response. I had people fly out from Melbourne to volunteer in their own time. We had people take time off work, come up on their weekends. I've got an incredible supporter in Perth who every time we do a specific call out goes online and
amazing.
We'll do a big W order to our warehouse. So it's, you know, there is enough support in our community, and that's my job, to channel that support and that kindness to the families who need it most. We spend a lot of time working on our social media to let people know what the needs are. They're changing constantly. We see different spikes in needs. We see spikes in domestic violence, particularly through cost of living crisis and the pandemic and things like that. We see in like northern New South Wales, where it was such extensive flooding, the needs of those communities changing constantly. So we are in constant communication with different communities, and we're led by the needs of those communities and by our caseworkers in our ordinary work to make sure we're responding to exactly what families need. And every family is supported with customised support. It's not cookie cutter. If you've got young children and you need help, it doesn't mean that you all need a cotter pram and a car seat. One family needs a double pram that they can get on and off public transport, and another family needs a car seat for a child with a disability that has to have specific requirements. So our job is to help families in the way that they need, not just to punch out the numbers. So there's a lot of time that goes into customising that support.
So in addition to the everyday person contributing via product, there is financial donations that are possible. Where do you want your message to be heard? Where do you want your voice? Where have you not reached yet? As far as an audience, who do you really want to listen to what you actually got to say and the mission you're on here?
Everyone in our community, because you don't have to be a parent or a grandparent to know that every human being needs an equal start in life. And without the material basics that we provide, children don't have a chance of getting out of the cycle of disadvantage that they're in. We need to empower parents and caregivers that they are worthy of providing the basic essentials.
That's a really interesting... so what you're doing here can be seen as, let's just help new mums, but you're really looking at changing the trajectory of young people who are born into those situations of underprivilege. So you're actually working on the parent mental state here and re-educating them that they are worthy.
Yeah. And I think an organisation like Baby Give Back, what we do is tangible. We've already helped over 6,000 children this year alone.
6,000 children have been impacted.
Yep. And I think that's the power in that.
6,000 parents.
The nappies that you brought in today, you don't have to have a lot of money to give. You don't have to have a lot of time to give. There is a way that everyone can give, and your gift makes a greater difference than what you realise. And in my position, I'm lucky enough, I get to see all of that come together and culminate in that huge impact, and know that this year alone, 6,000 kids have a safer start in life.
And what about corporates? I mean, obviously the bigger, you're obviously working at that. Are you working with the larger businesses yet? So
no,
the Aldis, the Woolworths, the Coles, come on. Seriously, we need to shake the trees. You are a prime, what I call industry agitator. Let's shake the trees and see what falls out, because I know that a lot of large corporate organisations have funds and dollars and allocation for their various programs and corporate social responsibility requirements and all sorts of things. You would know this from the legal background, but also creating initiatives internally. So even internal HR culture people who are embedded in organisations to usually introduce staff and teams to programs where they can have giving days and volunteer time.
Yeah.
Even tapping into those industries could definitely be transformational.
A good corporate volunteering program.
Amazing.
That's more active in Brisbane than on the Gold Coast, I think, as a representation.
Probably
of bigger
because
businesses.
the type of companies, yeah.
And it's great. And we, one of our team members, who also called Carly, runs it, and her background is as a teacher. So she has just developed this phenomenal program where the feedback we get is that people have such a great day. We do charge a fee for it because we have to staff the program.
Yes.
It's not as simple as just having people come for the day. We actually have to have a staff member who's helping to coordinate the activities for them. But we love it because we get to meet new people. They have a great experience. Lots of them end up supporting us in other ways, coming back and volunteering in their own time.
Yes.
And they get to work together in a really positive way. And for us as well, the more people that know about our work, the more of an impact we can make. Because there is no one in the community who can't contribute in some way. We have lots of families we support who end up either donating to us. There's a mum we supported at the very beginning of the flooding, her and her sister, who lost their homes. She now will continually buy nappies to donate, knowing that they're going to another family.
I work with a lot of schools and actually working with Ipswich City Council, and one of the biggest areas at council level, they're looking at engaging young people into volunteering programs. And I know that a lot of young people would love to get involved and give. Do you have an age limit on volunteering? On who can volunteer?
Volunteers can bring their children with them. That's something that's been really important because before I started Baby Give Back, I couldn't find anywhere I could volunteer with my young children.
No, it's a thing. It's a problem,
So sometimes it's challenging having kids in a warehouse, but that's a hurdle that we do everything we can to overcome.
What about teenage?
We're looking at a school holiday volunteering program that we're trying to get off the ground. It's about how we can resource that at the moment. But we do have some school students who volunteer as part of school programs. We've got lots of uni students who volunteer as part of their degrees.
Amazing.
I
think the school holiday program is sensational. I know some people who would love to back and support that.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those things that we just need to, in true entrepreneurial spirit, have a go and see what happens. And see how it works.
It's really powerful to be able to show kids you can make a difference, and what you have to contribute is really valuable to our community.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, we could go for hours, but we don't have hours. Carly, thank you so much for sharing the founding story. Also, what you plan to do next, I'm sure is going to be impressive and very impactful for people in need. I hope that everybody takes on board everything that Carly has shared and get involved somehow, some way. And I think that the key message is it doesn't really matter how much or how little, it all is helpful.
That's right.
We'll sign off here. I'm going to do a quick tour and just show everybody the warehouse and actually what happens here. But thank you so much for your time. And please do follow on all of the platforms that Carly mentioned previously. I will include them into the show notes, the links and how we can make sure we follow on socials. What's the biggest one where you are most active? Instagram. Yep, Instagram. So follow along on Instagram, see what they're doing, share, like, and get involved if you possibly can. So thank you, Carly.
Thank you.